Okay, I will call to order the Wednesday, March 6, 2024 meeting of the Oregon City Urban Renewal Commission. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Lori Arnello.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
Commissioner Doug Neely. Chair Mike Mitchell.
Here. Thank you. Okay, do we have any citizen comments? Yeah. Okay, no citizen comments. We'll move on to discussion item number 1, potential redevelopment options for the Stimson property. Mr. Conkle.
Thank you. Sorry, just give me one moment. This is still loading. So thank you. Good evening. At our last Urban Renewal Commission meeting, we had some good discussion about potential uses, what the Urban Renewal Commission would like to see on the Stimson property. At that meeting, provided you the mixed-use downtown district zoning code, and towards the end of the meeting, after some discussion, kind of went through all the permitted uses pretty quickly, looking at the consensus discussion items. So in the staff report, tried to summarize what I thought that I heard was, a tourist supporting development on the property, some type of a mixed use, and that maybe a limited residential component with the hotel rather than like a multifamily development that has a significant component of residential. And so what I did on the staff report that you have before you was essentially took the permitted uses in the mixed use downtown zone. So A, B, C, D, banquet, conference, then bed and breakfast. So this matches exactly as the mixed use downtown zone is written. And then at the end of that, put down what I thought I heard as part of that discussion. At the end of the meeting, it was, we were going to bring this back after the Urban Renewal Commissioners had a time to kind of think about it. And then maybe go through this one more time to see if there was any further discussions about anything that was a yes, a maybe, or a no. There was a question about some of the terminology of what certain things meant. So for a permitted use under Q for seasonal sales, that we reference, we get the seasonal sales of Christmas tree lots throughout the community or fireworks stands that come up around the 4th of July. And then the other one was transportation facilities, so Y, and it was a maybe. And so what I believe happened here was that transportation facilities include construction, operation, maintenance of travel lanes, bike lanes, and facilities, curbs, gutters. So this is really talking about kind of the infrastructure in the right-of-way. I think if I'm remembering correctly, I'm trying to jog my memory of what happened here, but essentially we put transportation facilities in all of the Oregon City Municipal Code, other than the Willamette Falls District, which came later. And I think it was an acknowledgement that, like we did the 7th Street Corridor Plan, or we did the Beaver Creek Plan, or the Malala Plan, that what we were proposing really wasn't addressed in the code, the land use code anywhere. So it was an acknowledgement that street lights and street trees and sidewalks and street furniture are permitted in these zones. So it wasn't getting at what Commissioner Smith brought up, which was, which really is a conditional use. So like a bus facility or, more of a transportation facility in terms of like a terminal. But I don't think that's really what we were thinking either. So, if there were a trolley stop, in the transportation is permitted, similar to a bus stop in the right of way, right? So I think the intent is allowed outright, assuming we're not talking about we're going to buy 15 trolleys, put them on the site with a maintenance barn, right? Like the transportation facility at the school up on Myers, right? I think those are two separate things. So I guess I could answer any questions or if you want to begin the discussion and work through this, or how you'd like to handle that. I can help facilitate that.
Mr. Graham, did you have anything to add?
No, I don't.
Okay. So what's the group's pleasure? Do we want to just buzz through these again one by one, or has everyone done that and maybe have specific concerns? How do we want to do this?
I think we've been there, done that.
Yeah, I went through it a second time again.
I'm in agreement with here.
Yes.
If I might, I was just going through them. Actually, I was thinking about it before I came in. One of the things that we lack that serves the Park Place area are the amenities such as groceries and so forth. We do have that on our list. It's a yes thing. But I think of that a lot in terms of our tourism and so forth. But we have areas, residential areas, that would be well served by some of the other amenities going in there where they're not. And I just wanted to throw that one in there.
Okay. You're speaking of grocery stores in particular?
Well, that comes to mind because almost all the grocery stores are, Hilltop,
Right.
Red Soils, and that area.
Right. At Beaver Creek and 213.
Yeah, but that's kind of small. I mean, I was thinking of something that,
You're talking about big box retail.
well, no, not big boxes, but, well, unless you call things like Safeway and so forth, the big box, which I
Well,
don't.
Freddy's is big box. You're saying
So-
we should add that?
Well, it's there.
Yeah,
We
it's
talk
there.
about grocery.
It's under item P.
I was just thinking in terms of how it could serve residential areas as well.
Anything else from the other commissioners before I make a comment? The one that I think we need to discuss again a bit is housing. Especially with the press that the state is putting on housing. I assume there's going to be money floating around to assist with housing, hopefully, or at least with the infrastructure related to housing. And I know our intention is for this to not be predominantly a housing site. But I also don't think we want to exclude, especially when you think about like the vertical housing tax credit. Because it could be that kind of a project might tilt a potential project into the yes, now it's feasible because of the tax credits that would be available. Thoughts on the housing? Commissioner Smith.
I was actually kind of surprised at our conversation last time about that, because I am not against having housing as a part of it. I just think that it should not be, the primary focus. It's like, and we've talked about this before about how do we include housing without building the housing first, and then hoping the rest of it gets tackled. Especially in this area, this list should be the focal point, and if housing can go on the second level or housing can be mixed into that to enhance that, that's great, but the housing shouldn't come first. It should be really integrated into this, plan and how that whole downtown section works, because I definitely think there's a balance, and I would be shocked to not have some housing component of it. I don't think, we definitely want to have some, hotel components, so there's definitely the ability to have other living opportunities down there, as long as that's like the secondary focus and it doesn't affect the main concept of that district.
Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. This is exactly what I was trying to get across at the last meeting. I never saw this as a housing focused and oriented development, especially with the history of how things have gone. But looking at ways that we can take advantage of the vertical tax credit, looking at potential live-work residences, not as the centerpiece of this place, but as a way of incentivizing an actual, what I believe to be mixed use, which is where the people are built-in components of that community, that little community that is going to be there. And the one that sticks out to me as being able to accomplish that goal is letter M, one of two units in conjunction with a non-residential use, provided that the residential use occupies no more than 50% of the total square footage of the development. So I just think that it would be a mistake for us to leave this out. It's exactly what I said last time, and so I appreciate the comments.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
Commissioner
right.
Neely.
I think I was the one that came with a very strong no on that, as I recall. Yeah, it was a small percentage, yes, but it has to be looked at strictly in terms of the mixed-use environment, which the MUD does. But I show up with the argument, I think there's an opportunity on Abernathy to actually do some major residential efforts, and not just throwing that out there. For one thing, it's on the bus line.
Could we pull up the map, please? Put it on the screen. It's going to be germane to, thank you, my comment. Actually, it's not.
I think you're gonna have to go to the web.
Yeah, you have to go to a different, that's not the map. That's this map, which is something else, so.
Can you go to,
Yeah, my concern is.
You go to
is
OC
the
Web
same as
and
I
bring up
expressed
Washington
last time. And we don't have a good track record on, as Commissioner Smith stated, on residential and then, oh yeah, we'll get the other stuff later. I think, so if he can, when you pull up the map, you'll see that there are ample opportunities for additional residential use to be placed south of the Stimson property. It's not occupied by residential right now, but it could be. And I think that would be a good place. I think that site will be challenging, primarily because of where it sits adjacent to the railroad. So there's the Stimson property. So I'm looking at so the site next to it. That's the depot, the little L, backward
L-shaped
L,
one, right,
and
yep.
then you see kind of where it says 18th Street. In between there and the L is a property that could be redeveloped. That's not part of the hotel project. Because I believe the hotel is going to take in those two little pieces there at 17th, and I believe there was one other little piece that's kind of back behind it. It's kind of hard to see with 18th Street kind of dropped on top of it there. There's a couple of tax lots.
Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with the mayor that that location that was pointed out would be great to look at as well. I think that for me, the priority comes from the fact that we've been looking at properties that we own and that we can have a greater say in what goes there. And so not knowing what the market is going to push for properties that we don't own, I think is a reason for us to be insisting on having a strong and clear vision for what we're asking on our own properties.
We haven't had, we've said it in the past, but we haven't meant it, so we mean it.
Right.
We mean it now.
And that, to what Commissioner Smith said, that may, I don't know how you write this into a sale agreement, but it gets to the phasing. Or you would specify that residential could only be developed either in conjunction with the same amount of other uses or not until after X percentage of the site is other uses, and I don't know how you write that, but I think that's what the intention is,
Yes, you put down, there will be, do not come and ask us for an exception, because it ain't gonna happen.
Chair, I did have one. Item Z was live-work dwellings, and we said no.
No, absolutely.
Is that really what we mean?
Yep,
Wouldn't live-work dwellings be a housing component?
yes.
Or
and-
you're concerned about the situation where the ground floor never ends up being work?
Exactly.
It ends up being more live.
Yeah, and it still isn't, I don't know if it's lived to this day. It just didn't turn into the work part.
We have vertical tax credit things that have never been fulfilled.
Right. Mr. Conklin, did you have something?
I guess,
I'd like to go after.
just trying to, in this discussion, just thinking about, we've got, roughly, 6-ish, a little over 6 acres, right? A little less than 7 acres probably, constrained by up out of the floodplain, 45-foot height limit, right? And so, I guess when we're thinking about this, is the proposal that yes, the predominant, the absolute have to have is a hotel. And then there's these ancillary things that someone could propose associated with it, but they have to propose something. Like we want more than just a standalone hotel, right? But we want a hotel.
Yes.
I guess when we talk about all these options, right? Some go much better with a hotel than others, right? A restaurant, maybe the limited housing component, right? We're starting to see a little bit of that in Portland, right? Convention center, a cultural museum component, right? Is a grocery going to go with a hotel? Probably not. When you've got to be elevated, right? You're losing that ground floor opportunity. So I guess in this discussion, or is the discussion any of these uses as long as they're combined we're okay with? Or is the hotel truly the anchor that we're building off of on this site?
And also, to support what the city manager is also saying, the other option, I still believe that a market feasibility study is probably one of the ways you should go, because while a hotel looks good on paper, the marketplace may come back and say, we're not going to put a hotel because it doesn't pencil, because you have a number of limitations on that property, including height limits. So no matter what you may want, the marketplace may say no. And so if it comes back with zero and no responses, as Commissioner McDonald mentioned the other day, there you have your market feasibility study. And then as Commissioner Marl has just said, that the marketplace is going to determine what goes on someone else's property. Well, the market's going to determine what goes on our property as well. So you simply can't ignore those fundamentals.
I think, though, if it's what we want, that's what we want, right? You have the value of the land as a negotiation tool. Unfortunately, we don't have urban renewal funds the way it's, because of our court case that's there, right? I was having this discussion with Commissioner Smith a little bit about, in my opinion, I think residential is probably, when you think about level degrees of difficulty, right? I think residential is probably the easier use, right? Timing wise, I'm not sure, right? But if we truly want a tourism based supportive use like a hotel, right? We're gonna have to be a partner in that may have the headwinds of the market reality, but you do have at least some tools, right? You have the value of the land as a component that could potentially help make the financials line up, right? So that's where I'm getting to, what do we, want, right? Because there's a couple ways to do this. It's got to be a hotel, and it's got to be one of these four things, whatever that may be, right? Or it's got to be a hotel and something of this other list that we've said we're okay with. Or it's pick anything off this list, as long as it's two of them together, we're fine with that, right? And turn it in and give us ideas, right? So in thinking about how we write this, right, that's kind of the spectrum that I'm kind of hearing and imagining in my head as to how we would articulate what we want back.
I'm ready.
Okay, Commissioner O'Donnell. So whether it be this project or any other project, you cannot think of it as a standalone project. You have to think of it as a component of the whole. And first of all, I agree with Commissioner Neely. 6 acres is not going to get me enough housing to make an impact. I agree that if he wants to put it on the Abernathy side or where the mayor just said, that makes sense to me. But 6 acres, you can't make a significant impact. I'm also going to key off of something that Commissioner Smith said. Make it a component of the tourism plan. We know that people spend where they live. We know that the transient room tax has value in our ongoing funding. We know that that is the entrance, one of the main entrances to our city. So we see that as a method of supporting tourism. Now, when you talk about the other components that you bring up, whether it be convention centers or historical displays or whatever, perhaps this thing is a catalyst to get the development on Rossman landfill that we want, or a piece of property that has a significant footprint where you can accomplish those greater endeavors that we're talking about. So, if we do a hotel down there, and a hotel lends itself because you can put it elevated out of the floodplain, and then you start doing your tourism package, your tourism flows all the way up Main Street. People start there and go all the way up Main Street, all the way to the Grand Ron project. So, I mean, you've got that traffic that you want from a point that you want. And quite honestly, if Metro ever gets off its butt and finds a place for that landfill, I guarantee you that major hotel chains will swoop on that piece of property because of its proximity to an easy on and off. So I just think, I mean, you think of the things that it could be if this is a catalyst and it gets us what we want. I mean, look at some of the attractions in the Pacific. Look at the Great Wolf Lodge. I mean, suppose that ends up going across the street. I mean, that's a heck of an attraction. I mean, we think of convention centers right there. We've talked about moving historical exhibits into that area where we can get participation by developers to help us provide the very display areas that we need. But this is 6 acres, and I'd like to utilize it as a catalyst or a spark plug for other things and save the greater projects for larger land masses. Thanks.
Can I, Commissioner Neal, go ahead.
No, if we're going on, I have another question that relates tangentially, but no, go ahead with it. If you have something going right
No,
now.
mine's totally off the subject.
Oh, okay. The question was, have we or do we still own property across from the Stimson property across Washington
We
Street?
still own a lot there.
Yeah, okay.
We own the small,
Yeah.
little square,
Yeah.
yep, rectangle right there. There used to be the chamber.
Yeah, that little square, yep.
Yeah.
Parks is still owned by Sino.
Trails End Diner.
I've got 2 technical kind of questions. The height restriction, the 500-foot thing,
Yes.
and maybe I can't believe that scale down in the corner, but it looks to me, if that's close to being accurate, it looks to me like a fair amount of that property would be further than 500 feet away.
Almost the entirety is in.
Really?
Is within, yes.
Did he say it's all within 500 feet?
Yeah, you said almost the entire thing.
Yeah, it's probably going from the property line of the trail center.
Well,
across.
if you go right from the corner of that property, I can't believe that's not more than 500 feet.
Gonna get out the
Exactly
ruler.
501 most likely.
Some section of it, not the whole.
Yeah.
Millimeter.
And then the other question I have is,
There's a ruler.
I'm assuming the brown line is the property line?
Yes,
And why does it go so far away from Washington Street?
that's probably part of the, I remember it used to be the old
82nd.
213.
The old
Kind of
what?
looks like a right of way to me.
It was 213 at one time, that part. When I moved
Okay,
here-
so is that right away? Is it, no, what is that?
Some of it's right
What is
away.
that pie-shaped piece of property there?
I mean, where the word Washington
mean,
is?
I mean, just this weirdness where, right where Washington makes a bit of a bend to the right as you're looking at the map, and that brown line is going progressively further away from
733.
Washington.
Yeah, I think that's the right of way for
532.
82nd.
Okay, so that means that's more than half of that property that's outside the 500 feet. Isn't it?
Roughly, yeah. I'm no engineer like John.
Right, so you could have a
So
colored
maybe,
portion.
maybe the next time we come back, let's have a radius on that,
Get a better
on
idea
that
of
map.
height.
And then I would like an answer to that question too, because I don't understand. You see what I'm talking about?
So it's the old, 82nd Avenue that connected over to the old bridge that crossed into Gladstone.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the old right-of-way where that road was located. So this is what so at our
You
last
had mentioned last meeting to try to investigate those parcels
Yeah.
and vacating them or whatever.
What we kind of find is that, ODOT, especially down in that area with
Yeah.
where old 82nd was as the state connection, state road, and then you had, obviously 213 come in,
And all
right?
that.
There's a lot of old right-of-way in there, that's just never been cleaned up or, for all I know, a conversation happened with ODOT years ago and they didn't want to do something. So that's what I was mentioning last time, was that we would try to investigate if there's a way we could clean that northern end of that property up a little bit to really reflect what we
Yeah.
need in Washington. street.
Sure which wedge you were talking about?
Okay. Pardon?
I wasn't sure which wedge you were talking about because the map kept moving around here.
You see what I mean now, or should
No.
I can show?
Because this is on the other side of 205. You're talking about this?
I'm talking about between this Washington.
where the road is.
And that brown line.
Yeah.
See how that's,
Yeah, that's
This,
field right
right
away.
in there. Yeah.
Field right away, yeah.
okay. So you'll investigate the 500-foot, give us a radius on there.
We can still move forward
So
with
what
other things.
what is, without trying to come to a firm decision, what is the group's feeling about hotel as anchor of the project?
There's just,
I don't know, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah, I personally like the idea of the hotel with some sort of community, community asset, a bakery, a coffee shop, conference center, something that both captures the economic, opportunities from highway travel, tourism, but also offers community locally to benefit from and use and utilize. I don't want to see just an isolated, hotel necessarily. I would like to see a community asset being built, some sort of space. So I like the component of the restaurant or, something Oregon City can use, not just tourism.
I think the presence of a hotel drives restaurants too. Remember, if we look at what we've already got down there, we've got corner 14, we've got newer restaurants that are established. They're not that far away.
no, that's right.
And it'll fill in some more with that draw, with that clientele.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, I'm going to call on you because your involvement in this area has been long-term. How do you feel about the importance of a hotel as the anchor? Not to put you on the spot, but I just did.
If it's not the key thing, I don't know what is. And, even if there's multiple of those hotels down there, it creates a focal point for that whole tourism infrastructure to work out of the neighborhoods and right off the freeway and intermixed with, the community value, having like the restaurants and coasters where people are going to go down there anyway that live here. But if we can attract one or two hotels in that area, that's going to signify what we are stating that area should be. We don't want to, we can designate it that way. I would rather see that than start seeing hotels pop up, up on the hill. Now there's possibilities that a hotel could pop up, somewhere near the college off 213, and maybe but we're kind of if we can kind of make a focal point of what we expect this area to be, people can come in and out of town, and tour, the city. It'll add to what we expect of the dump site, but I think it'll also set the tone for the Cove. I'm kind of glad that I've been so critical of the Cove, but it's still empty, and as long as it's empty, it can be whatever we want it to be. And if we can start dictating some of these pieces, what's happening at the Cove 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, is going to be a lot better than it would have been what we did yesterday.
And never forgetting, people spend where they stay.
Right.
I mean, that's the attraction.
Any other thoughts?
No one wants to argue with me.
Consensus.
What?
No one wants to argue with me.
No?
Well, no, yeah,
That's unusual.
I think you made a solid case with the comment that if that isn't it, what is?
Well, and we basically said that here. I mean, we basically said that here. So I feel like we've accomplished. Actually, I feel like we accomplished more in the last 2 meetings than we have in the last 5 years.
Now we just need a shovel in the ground, right?
Now we just need to go.
So, next steps.
So what did I hear?
What do you think, Jared?
They all agree with me, Tony.
I know, so I think I'm hearing that the hotel
It's a pretty big component.
is kind of the anchor we're starting with, that then gets something included with it that we're open to ideas related to based on what we've identified as acceptable complementary uses to that.
Right. From the list that.
So I'm not hearing we want a hotel and a convention center or a hotel and a restaurant. We want a hotel and, hey, can you do a restaurant or some limited residential or a convention center or a museum or whatever else we've identified on that permitted uses. Does that sound accurate? Yeah, okay. All right.
Do you have any time frame on the geotech work?
We heard it. I think before John comes up, I guess when I think about this, right, I guess the next kind of discussion, right, we're going to talk about the geotech component of this. You know, is there an appraisal so that we have some idea of the value rather than relying on an outside, you know, whoever's going to buy it coming in with an appraisal, right? Is that something we want as the commission to know heading into, you know, having any discussions about what happens with this property, right? Whether it's to know we're going to sell it for X or we're going to negotiate that to make sure to see if we can get what we want on the property if there's a gap in the financials.
Certainly.
Mike, go ahead.
Certainly you want to know that. You want to know the present value of the land that you control and its value in the marketplace, no matter what course you pursue. If you're going to enter into negotiations with someone, you need to know that. If you're going to put it up for sale, you need to know what its market price is given the current conditions. So I think that's small money to be an educated participant in any negotiation or sale.
And I guess after John answers this question, right, in my mind, it's we take all that information, right, that here's the information we have concerning the DEQ no further action, right? Here's what we know from the geotech report about what the existing condition is and the extent of any fill or material that might be there that needs to be taken off the site potentially. Here's the use we want. As a hotel, does this, you know, what's the appraised value versus a free market, just sell it, right? There could be a difference there, right? So to me, it's like as we refine this with more certainty of what we would like this going out, you know, to me, it's like we give as much as we can to the appraisers so that it's a known, you know, trying to reduce the number of surprises or unknowns, right? So does that make sense as a potential path forward?
What that wealth of information does, it prevents any false starts. It prevents you entering into something and then the buyer says, oh, we just discovered this unknown and we're pulling out.
I think it's to try to answer as many as we can. And there still may be, right?
Lock it in.
Until you dig into it, right? So I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I do. So the geotech second geotech that we awarded to has ordered the drilling rig to be there. So that takes time. Mid-April is the schedule. There's not a lot of them and they're pretty high demand right now. We're meeting with him next Wednesday, the 13th, to just talk about what our big concerns are to make sure we're all on the same page with regard to that. But that's the timeline.
And so, you know, if an appraisal is something we want, what I would propose is that I start that process of finding somebody, but that we don't necessarily kick it off until we have all the information we think we can get.
Great.
Correct.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's no surprises to a potential buyer. They can be advised of everything that exists. We're working in good faith and they accept all those conditions as part of the offer. And then there's no weasel words or escape clauses.
Yeah. And especially in this case, because the value of whatever the appraisal says that value of that property, that's kind of our bargaining chip at this point. So that's what we sell that property for. We're limited on what else we can do. Yes,
Well,
sir.
I
Yes, ma'am.
think as usual, if we follow our review process, which we will be, I think that we need to leave ample room for staff to negotiate. Because in selling urban renewal properties, there's always a little wiggle room here to say, well, you give us this, we can make this kind of a deal with you. If you don't want to give us this, then this is what the price is, and then we don't want to deal with you. So,
Right.
and I think that's the way we ought to go.
Seems reasonable.
It will be reasonable.
Anything else on this topic?
So
Commissioner Morrow?
do we need to make a motion?
Thank you. I just wanted to, back to what we're looking at, having developed at this site. I don't think any of us are under the impression that however many units of housing is going to make a dent on the needs that we have in this community. For me, the need is more to make this development a complete development. I think it's about making sure that there is a built-in clientele, not just the transient nature of the hotel that we all know is going to be the centerpiece, but for our Main Street businesses, for the businesses that we have just talked about that are starting to fill in along Washington Street. And so that's why I think that it's important not to reach a huge goal of making an impact on our local housing market so much as making sure that we're having complete developments that ensure that we can have a thriving area over there.
Yep. Good point.
Don't need to make any motions or anything of that sort. We're all good giving that direction.
I'm comfortable if you are. I mean, I think,
Yeah,
you know,
I am too.
we're
If we
MUD.
needed one, I'll make one, but.
MUD, you know, minimal housing could be considered. Come back with a map showing the 500-foot radius and the differentiation between the 45-foot and the 75-foot on the property. You know, start working on, you know, seeing if there's any way we can clean up that right-of-way with ODOT on the north end of the property. Geotech's going to be out there hopefully mid-April. Begin the process for the appraisal, getting somebody lined up to do that work. And then, you know, thinking to myself, you know, we'll probably start inserting this into some type of like an RFP, you know, advertisement that we would do, right? Start collecting these things and filling that in as to what that would look like so that we can keep this moving forward.
Good. Sounds good. Okay, item number 2, minutes of December 20th, 2023 Commission meeting, Urban Renewal Commission meeting.
I move that we adopt the minutes of December 20th, 2023 as submitted.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lori Arnello,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Aye.
Chair Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Any communications?
Yes, if I can have the, wanted to bring forward, as many of you are aware, if we can put up a map, I put on the map on your dais that shows some area just east of the Cove, north of the Cove at Edgewater Apartments. So Evan, if you can bring up that one PDF that you had up earlier. Yep, that's it. So this is what you have on your dais. So we met with Water Environmental Services. Some of you were at their groundbreaking for the new pipe that they're building, the 90-inch pipe. That'll be the new discharge from Wes at the north end of Agnes to the Willamette River, just adjacent, just outside roughly where John Storm Park is. So on the map, you see a blue dashed line. Those are some of the properties owned by the Urban Renewal Agency. So that was the Cove development when it was subdivided into, I think it was roughly 7 parcels. There were going to be individual buildings along there. So we parcelized that large lot. And then the 2 white areas to the right or to the east of that blue dashed line, those are private properties. And Wes is staging on those properties for this project. So bringing in these 90+ inch pipes, staging them. And so part of this project, for those who don't know, from Wes coming south down Agnes roughly to just north of the roundabout is going to be a traditional open dig. So they're going to dig it up, drop it in, cover it up, just like we do most of our utilities. Beginning roughly at the roundabout, they're going to dig a shaft, drop a machine in that will essentially bore underground. From there, parallel to 205, it'll pop up at the southbound on-ramp from 99E onto 205 southbound, that green space in the middle. A second shaft will be there, and they'll complete the undergrounding, tunneling from there, under 99, under Clackamet Drive, under John Storm Park, out into the river.
Can you trace that for us, or is it traceable?
I'm sorry?
Can you trace that on the map or not? Or on our maps?
I'd have to
There's
get
a
a
roundabout,
bigger, if you could bring up the second attachment, it says Urban Renewal, West, yep, number 2. Let's see. You want to show them? Okay. So the request is, we have these urban renewal properties. So you remember when we had the ice storm? This is where we brought the debris that we then chipped. We fenced it off, it's secure. We still have some of our public works equipment down on this urban renewal property. So Wes has requested because they're gonna have Agnes tore up, they've asked if we would grant an easement that would allow them to go across our property to get to the roundabout so that they can avoid the dig that they're doing in Agnes. And it would be coming in with, construction rock. It's dirt, it gets pretty muddy especially when you got those heavier trucks on it. Essentially, they would create a construction drive aisle that then we would either have them remove when they're done, or, we could keep it. We do have our trucks go in there in the mud and whatnot. Really, it seems like a reasonable request from staff perspective. Just wanted to bring it forward. If there were significant concerns, this would be a temporary, probably 9-month to a year type of a situation while they're getting that big pipe into Agnes, at which point they won't need that access anymore. If there were significant concerns, love to talk about them, or if you'd like me to bring this back, I could bring this back. Otherwise, we've traditionally negotiated easements for use of properties, especially on an interim limited basis, just at the staff level.
I have a question on what kind of remediation or how are they going to restore that property after they're done with that? Because I assume that's going to do some damage.
I would imagine that we would have them take the rock out, and it's pretty much compacted dirt right now. There's not a lot trees coming out, vegetation coming out. I mean, it's kind of it's almost like a yard. Yeah, exactly.
It's barely gravelled.
Yeah.
One thing that I would offer is that,
And, sorry, a follow-up question. I believe that property is used to access,
Can you move the mic over so you're actually talking directly into instead of the sideways?
I believe that property is used for Clackamet Cove access, is it not? Will that limit access during the summer?
It will not. No, this would be north of that gravel parking lot that's there. So if you go out there now, you have the public parks in that gravel parking lot, and there's a chain link fence right now that separates the public from what we've used for the ice storm, as well as some of our public works overflow that we have down there right now. So I do not anticipate it would impact the parking at all.
So here's another thought. Is it possible that the quality of that gravel road they're going to put in there could be such that it could be used as a road base for a permanent future road if we so decided? Could you specify the quality of it?
Excellent point. I mean, I think that was kind of what I was going to say was, right now, we've used that if you remember the ice storm cleanup, I don't know if any of you took your debris over there, but it was soupy out there. Remember how soupy it was and pretty hard to drive on? And so this kind of gives us whatever that road section looks like. I think it's going to be significant because we're talking large trucks and a lot of mud. What will it look like at the end of their process? That's a question, but when it first goes in, it's going to look pretty good, and it could be utilized for a better road base in there. So I think there's some advantages to it. We use it, just so it's clear, if you come off the roundabout And if you've been up there, you kind of come over this hook right here that kind of puts you into that parking lot that you're talking about. And then there's a gate back there, and we drive through it too, because we have some storage areas back there. I think they want to come around and come right up into here, into these two big parcels right here. And then what I heard from them was when they're digging this area along Agnes Road, that the route may be to bring either, gravel back in or dirt back out, but their plan, I think, is to go out to 213. So, we're trying to figure out we're actually looking at the road conditions here and wanting to make sure at the end of the job that because it's going to be a lot of truck traffic, that they're going to restore our pavements as well.
I was just thinking, looking at the location of that temporary road, if in fact, in the future, we do something there, that really might assist us in putting a permanent road in there if the road base were such that we could use it.
Right.
I don't think it's in the right location.
No,
But it would be material. The actual Agnes Road as dedicated on the plat is kind of where John's showing, so it's just to the right or east of the blue line. In between the blue line and those white buildings is the dedicated new Agnes per the plat.
Well, I think we specify the nature of the material and make sure it's reusable and the depth of it. And we consider it as a source to use later. I don't think there's any cut and fill advantage to us because they're just going to backfill after if there's a place to use extra soil.
Are they
consider that.
stockpiling the boring material somewhere, or are they taking that off-site?
They're taking
that's
it off.
going to be taken off site.
Okay.
It's going to be liquid.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it'll be pretty
From the
wet.
boring machines.
The boring machine sits will sit right over here. And
You're
then,
saying the boring machine liquefies the soil, and is that how it works?
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, but
Comes
I mean,
up.
as far as the open trenching,
as
it's
the
going to be just soil.
well, they'll haul that off too. They're going to haul that off.
Well, and I'm saying, do we have any use for it?
I don't think this is coming through the unpermitted dump as part of this.
We don't want,
Yeah.
we don't want
Let's ask the
that,
question. If we don't, that answers
wanna
the
know.
question.
and we don't want to know what it is.
I think
Are we comfortable with staff going ahead,
Yes.
working on this?
Yeah.
Do
Do
we
we want
need
a
a
motion?
motion?
if that'd be great. Yeah, give us the ability to.
I would so move. We allow staff to enter into an agreement with the Water and Environmental Services for access for the outfall project.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Lori Arnello,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Denise McGriff,
Aye.
Commissioner Doug Neely,
Good.
Chair Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Anything further?
That was all that I had tonight. Thank you.
Anything from commissioners?
Yes, sir, I have one.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mitchell. I have a little report out on the Metro Regional Solid Waste Facilities Plan. Commissioner Smith addressed it briefly, talking about the Metro South Transfer Station. So I think some of you are aware that I participated a few years back on in a facility study with Metro about moving the transfer station. And we came up with a recommendation from our committee and passed it on to the Metro Council. And that recommendation in sum was that we would recommend that they move the commercial activity from the Metro South Station, relocate that. We actually picked a site on Jennifer Street, which they did subsequently reject. But the second component to that was that we wanted a smaller facility in Oregon City that would still accept residential refuge, but it would also have an educational component with it, sort of a reuse center possibly, and an ability for education. So they kind of put that on the shelf, and at the last impact meeting, there was a presentation on a Metro-wide regional solid waste facility plan, which basically made the same recommendation, not about Metro South, but basically about decoupling some of the commercial facilities from some of the other transfer stations, and that there be this educational component. So they are moving that forward, and I'm hoping that that will get adopted by the Metro Council very shortly, but there's still, the delay for us will be, they still have to find a place in our region that would accommodate a commercial operation. And I think that, you know, if you talk to all the haulers that are coming there, the commercial haulers, they would like it out of there too. So I just wanted to report on that, that is moving forward, because I made the comment at Impact, gee, this sounds exactly like what you did on a smaller scale in our area. And I said, it's kind of like deja vu, and one of the staff piped up and said, yes, it basically is, except they're looking at Washington and Multnomah counties as well. Apparently, what I understood from the study is that I guess they don't have a solid waste depot in Washington County, which I was kind of surprised, and I asked to follow up on that, but they do have one at Central, which is the other transfer station in Multnomah County. So I was like, okay, because the comment was made, well, people in Washington County just dump their stuff. And I said, what do you mean they just dump their stuff? Well, they don't know how to get rid of it, so I thought, okay. So anyhow, it's moving forward. Thought I'd just report that out, because this will have implications for our Stimson property.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. Anything
You're
else?
very
from
welcome.
Anyone? Okay, thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.